Holmes once told me on a rainy afternoon in Northumberland, "Not every murderer wears a mask, Watson. Some don't need to hide anything because the world has assumed they are harmless." If you met Velma Barfield in the later years of her life, you probably wouldn't see anything suspicious. A silver-haired woman, petite, with a gentle voice, carrying a Bible with her and always willing to pray with her fellow inmates. She used to be a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and, something no one expected, a serial killer using poison. Velma was born in 1932 in South Carolina, in a poor working-class family where faith in God and silence were the two pillars of Southern life. She grew up during the war, married young, became a mother, and then soon became a widow. The losses in life led Velma to seek control. Holmes remarked as he looked through the first file, "If she can't control the pain in her heart, then she will control the death of others." Velma's first husband died in a fire. Second husband died of a mysterious illness. Then there was her biological mother, who had lived with Velma and died suddenly after an unusual bout of nausea. Then there were the patients, the elderly, the disabled, the vulnerable, whom Velma cared for like an angel, before they died under mysterious circumstances. It wasn't until 1978, when Stuart Taylor, Velma's last fiancé, died from drinking beer mixed with rat poison, that the police began to look at the whole picture. They connect the dots, compare the traces, call the toxicologist. And when the results came out, Holmes whispered, "She didn't just kill someone. She makes us believe that we are loved, while slowly being poisoned." In a society accustomed to the gentle grandmother archetype, Velma is a living paradox. The caregiver is the one who took action. The one who prays is also the one who sows death. And Holmes asked me, very softly, "Watson, if evil can disguise itself as kindness like that, can we trust what we see, or just what we want to believe?" The court called Velma a premeditated serial killer. The press calls her the death row granny. But if we only stop at that title, we will miss the way she killed, not by force, but with poison and gentleness. Holmes once told me, "Poison is the perfect weapon for those who don't want to be heard." And I never forgot that line, especially when we started trailing Velma Barfield. Velma is not the type of murderer you usually see in the news. No break-in, no escape, no chaotic crime scene left behind. She killed someone right in her own house, in the kitchen, and in the hospital room, places that were supposed to be the safest. The weapon was not a knife, but arsenic and then furosemide, a powerful diuretic when overdosed. Holmes bowed his head and looked over the list of victims: Charles, Thomas, Lillian, Dolly, Jennings, Stewart, and then he tapped his fingers on the table 3 times. "The common denominator, Watson. They all believe her." Velma was the last person to cook for them, the last person to touch their medicine, the only one who knows the medical schedule, symptoms, and even food preferences. Holmes said, "She didn't just kill with drugs. She kills with faith." Each victim died in the same way: nauseous, tired, abnormal blood pressure, a sudden seizure. The death was recorded as cardiac arrest of unknown cause. And then, the funeral. Velma is wearing black, standing by the coffin, praying. No one suspected that the dedicated caregiver was the one poisoning in the shadows. There is one detail that Holmes pays special attention to. Velma is always present at the scene, but she is never the first to discover the body. There is always a third person, a neighbor, a doctor, or a nurse, who steps in first. She wanted to witness death, Holmes said solemnly, but never wanted to leave a fingerprint. And just like arsenic, odorless, colorless, Velma learned to hide within the routine. She doesn't change her behavior after each death. No disturbance, no disappearance. On the contrary, she remained as silent as ever, reading the Bible, brewing tea, and inquiring about the next patient. Holmes concluded when I asked about the motive. Not just for money, not just for control, but it's because, in death, she finally felt noticed. When arrested and facing the death penalty, Velma did not resist. She confessed, almost relieved. And then, something strange happened. In the solitary confinement cell, the woman who once dealt death became a source of comfort for others. "I have seen many converts in prison," Holmes once said. "Some find God, some find an audience." But very few people truly find themselves. After being sentenced to death for poisoning her fiancé, Velma Barfield did not cry out. She didn't resist either. Instead, she prayed. In the third cell block of Central Prison, North Carolina, where the lights never go out, Velma began a new life. She reads the Bible every morning, lead the evening prayer for the inmates on the same floor, write a letter to the victim's family, even though no one replies. A prison guard recounted, "I have never seen anyone so close to death, yet still maintains such a gentle tone." Holmes flipped a page in her prison diary. "God has forgiven me," she wrote. "Now I want to live the rest for those who haven't had that chance." Holmes looked at me and asked, "Is she confessing or writing a script for a pardon hearing?" Because at that time, the media called Velma the death row granny, but her supporters call her a living testament to redemption. Pastor Hoyle, who once preached to Velma in prison, affirmed she didn't plead for more life. She just wanted to leave like someone who had been forgiven. For 6 years on death row, Velma never once requested a sentence reduction due to mental illness. Don't blame childhood, marriage, or drug addiction. She only said, "I have caused an irremovable pain. But if I am still alive, I want to wipe away someone's tears, even if just once." Holmes told me, "That's the only thing that confuses me, Watson. A murderer, but no longer seen as dangerous." And then a bigger question arises. When a person has truly changed, then do we still have the right to kill them? Or are we just killing a name that has long been dead? The court upheld the sentence. Reform or not, the truth is 6 people have died, and the law does not forget that. But on the final night, Velma is no longer the poisonous killer. She is the woman sitting quietly, pen in hand, writing the final words on the page of the Bible, next to a bag of snacks and an unopened can of Coke. Holmes once told me, during a criminal trial we attended, death is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is a mirror, reflecting how society treats those who have fallen. On November 1st, 1984, on the last morning of her life, Velma Barfield slept very well. "I have never slept so peacefully," she said, then smiled at the guard. No one expected the death row inmate to be so calm. She woke up at 6 o'clock, asked for a cup of hot water mixed with instant coffee, and then sat down to read the Bible. Holmes flipped through the notes. "Don't panic. No crying." There was only one woman, folding her life like a half-written letter. By 9 a.m., the visitors began to arrive. Family members, a lawyer, an old pastor, and even those who once held her in prison. A guard stepped forward, holding a yellow chrysanthemum. "From the male prisoners in the camp," he said softly. "A little care today." She accepted it. No tears, just say, "Thank them for me." At 11:30, Pastor Hoyle arrived, the one who had preached to Velma for the past 6 years. They hugged each other, then sat down. A moment later, he said softly, "Velma, the final appeal has been denied." She looked down, then raised her head. "I know, I am ready." All day long, she ate bean soup, drank fruit juice, and then wrote a letter to her child, each stroke of the blue ink placed into a white envelope. That evening, she asked for a bag of snacks, a can of Coke, and 2 small Bibles to give to her 2 cellmates. Holmes tapped his fingers lightly on the table. "We have seen many madmen before they died, but here, there is a woman, silent, as if death did not come to take away, but to close a chapter." Around 2 a.m. on November 2nd, Velma was taken out of her cell. Hair is neatly combed. The pink pajamas were her final request. The doctors inserted the IV into her hand. The straps are tightly bound around the wrists and ankles. 3 syringes are ready. One of them is fake, to protect the conscience of the executor. Before the injection, they asked, "Do you have any last words?" Velma looked up at the glass partition, where the lawyer, pastor, and representatives of the victim's family were. "I want to apologize for all the pain I have caused. I know everyone has endured too much. I sincerely apologize." Then she softly said, "And thank you to everyone who has been by my side for the past 6 years." When the needle pierced her skin, she didn't flinch. "Just close your eyes," a nurse said later. She went like someone who had just finished reading a prayer. At 2, 6:15 a.m., Velma Barfield, the first woman to be executed in the U.S. in over 20 years, was pronounced dead. Holmes didn't say anything while I read the last line, just looking into the distance, then asking, "Watson, if a person can die like that, with calmness, with apologies, with gratitude, then their guilt must have died before that?" Holmes once told me on a quiet evening at Baker Street, "I am not afraid of crime, Watson. I fear the things that make people stop believing in change." Velma Barfield died at 2:15 a.m. No screaming, don't beg. She left like a gust of wind passing through the Carolina fields, where she once grew up, laughed, and poisoned her dearest loved ones. The court affirmed, the guilt is clear, the sentence is justice. Supporters of the death penalty argue that she deserves to die, regardless of rehabilitation. But there is one thing that the sentence cannot measure. Is that person, when they die, still the same criminal from years ago? In the last 6 years of her life, Velma was no longer the murderer carrying poison in her pocket. She became the spiritual mother in the solitary confinement room. An elderly woman with gray hair reads the Bible, writes encouraging letters to her fellow inmates, and quietly apologizes to each child who has lost their mother because of her. Holmes remained silent for a long time, then asked, "If justice is judging what has happened, and compassion is looking at what people are becoming, so why don't we let justice and compassion sit at the same table?" I do not deny Velma's crimes. 6 people have died, 6 families shattered, no act of atonement can turn back time. But I also cannot deny another thing. In her death, there is something very human. And perhaps the question is not, is Velma Barfield worthy of forgiveness? But rather, are we ready to accept that people, even murderers, can change? Holmes folded the file, placing his hand on the old tobacco pipe lid. I am not looking for an ending, Watson. I am only looking for a way to listen to the silence of justice. Velma Barfield died like a murderer, but living the last 6 years like a person seeking redemption. The final question is not for her, it's for us. But what Holmes said that day still haunts me to this very moment.